a constant war within yourself. There's something in you that doesn't want to change. There's something in you that fights the process of transformation, and you could call it the ego, your old self. But it doesn't matter what you call it. You just have to recognize that there's a part in you that not only wants to stay the same, but that resists change and will fight the process of transformation. And it can come in many different ways. That's what I'm starting to realize, is this little voice within us will try and sabotage you in a bunch of different ways. And it's tricky because, we all have voices in our head. And at least for me, I get confused on who's who sometimes and which voice I should listen to. And so, like I said, it's tries to sabotage you. And, the ego it's clever. And it's very, something that I've been starting to realize and recognize is it's, very logical and analytical, and it looks at the facts in front of you, right? And it looks at the outside world and it tells you, well, this is set up a certain way, so you have to do this. It must be this way. Because, the ego is also about control, and it likes to know what's going on and, have a sense of security around itself. And so it's going to look for any sort of way to find itself and find itself in a way that it's comfortable with, a way that it knows itself already, because change means a breaking down of the ego. Transformation means a breaking down of the old way of being and obviously transform it into the new way of being. It's like the caterpillar and the butterfly. And what's interesting about that, studies show that the caterpillar's cells during the process of the transformation of becoming a butterfly actually try and fight and kill off the new cells of the butterfly. And it's because it doesn't know what it's turning into. And so it gets scared and it gets confused and it wants to say the same, like, what's going on? It feels like a death. It feels like you're dying, part of you at least. And so that's the first step of transformation, and to overcome this battle within ourselves is to recognize the fact that you are going to be at war with another part of yourself. And that's something that I've been realizing. And so it's interesting because when you start to awaken to the deeper self within us, right? When you start to awaken to that aspect of yourself, what you'll come to notice is that it doesn't make total sense a lot of times in a logical, linear way. And I relate this to any type of creative activity and flow. Creativity in its essence is unique and flows. It doesn't have a structure with steps to take. Creativity comes when it wants to, it leaves when it wants to, and it doesn't have a direct path. You can actively, take the steps to show up every day and, practice your craft, and by doing so, the consistency will eventually unlock some sort of flow state where creativity will just flow in. But at the end of the day, you can't sit down and be like, all right, I'm just gonna create the best piece I've ever create whatever it is that you're creating and do it the best way that you've ever done it. It doesn't really work that way. Those best pieces come when they please, and you have to make yourself available for when they're ready to come to you. you have to allow these ideas and feelings to come to you. And what I've realized that the ego and that part of you that we're at war with will fight that, because it doesn't want to just simply let go and surrender to the unknown, because that's a lot of times part of the creative path. It's surrendering to uncertainty and not knowing how this is going to manifest, but trusting that somehow it will. And so that's the battle. It's the battle of seeing the world in the physical sense and the facts and the logical linear sense, and seeing what's in front of you, the known world, the seen world. And then the other battle is trusting in the unseen world, trusting in the unmanifested, trusting in the formless, trusting in, what's taking place behind the scenes. And, the sensory eyes can only see what has already formed. It can't see what's taken form and becoming. And that's important to remember, because you have to remember that in our physical sense, we are limited. And the more that we remind ourselves of that, the more that we awaken to the fact that there's a lot more out there that we don't know, but just because we don't know it and we can't see it, doesn't mean it's not real. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so that's been the battle with me recently, and the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I'm sure a lot of people are feeling this right now, or going through some sort of transformation, and transformation isn't pretty all the time. If anything, it's the total opposite. It's actually a very ugly process. It literally requires the breaking down of one's old way of being, and of course then becoming the new. And what's interesting about becoming that new part of yourself is you have to know how to live now with that new part of yourself. I'm reading this book called The Genius Myth, and by Michael Meade. It's a very powerful book, and essentially he's talking about how everyone has this genius within them, and it's not the genius in the traditional sense that we know. We point at someone with a very high intellect and we call them a genius, or even a creative genius, right? He uses the word genius in its old way of thinking, which meant the spirit that's already there. So kind of the spirit that came in to this world with you when you were born, and it's awakening to that aspect of yourself. And so what's interesting about that is when this transformation process happens within us, we will realize that first, we don't know what's on the other side of the transformation, just like the caterpillar and the butterfly. And so we'll fight that. And when we do know, when we become it, now you have to learn how to live with this new part of you. Because I also truly believe, and he also talks about this too, when you awaken to your truest potential and to your calling, or to your unique gifts, you have to learn how to live with it, and learning how to live with it means honoring that part of you, because that part of you could be, that path that you're now walking can be a very demanding path. It can ask a lot of you, which is another reason why the ego would want to fight it. It's because it'll say, I can't handle this. This is too much for me. I don't believe that will even happen, right? Once again, the ego likes security, it likes comfort. It doesn't like the unknown. And so it restricts your belief. It restricts your imagination. And it's very important to overcome those thoughts during this time, because the more you overcome them, the more clear your true path will look. The louder that little voice within yourself, you'll be able to hear it more. You'll be able to hear the creative ideas more. They'll be able to come to you more. And so it's very important to have some sort of practice to overcome these thoughts, whether that be meditation, writing, exercising even, or whatever your creative process is. It could be anything for anyone. It could just be simply taking a walk outside, so but it's very important to overcome these thoughts. And yeah, that's just the biggest thing that I kind of wanted to talk about today, is this process of transformation that you're probably going through right now. And there's that part of you that's totally resisting that and fighting that and doesn't want that part of you, the new part of you, to evolve and come to the surface. And so you just got to remember to realize that it's natural and normal that part of you is fighting this, and to not succumb to those thoughts, to not succumb to the feelings of negativity and pessimism, and just make sure you continue to honor your truest self during this time. And I truly believe everything else will fall into its place. Everything else will take care of itself when you start to listen to yourself and follow yourself, more importantly, and honor the path that you're supposed to take. But yeah, man, just wanted to share that real quick. I think that's all I got for now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, leave a comment. All right. Peace, guys.